Italy's referendum results have come back with no. As a result, Italy's prime minister has resigned. Due to uncertainty and more instability, the euro has fallen against the US dollar yet again. US stocks seem unfazed by the mess in Europe as stocks hit another all-time record high, thanks to the Goldman Sachs stock. You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. We are going to look at the euro crashing today. We're going to look at the Italy referendum. Let's begin with this. U.S. equities kicked off the week, trading higher on Monday, unfazed by a key vote in Italy, which led to the Prime Minister's resignation. The Dow average gained around 50 points after spiking more than 100 to hit a new record high. Goldman Sachs stock contributing most of the gains. The S&P 500 advanced 0.5%, energy rising more than 1.3%. And this rally here has seen large cap indexes rising more than 2% since the US election. And what we can see here is that at least until the inauguration, we can expect this to continue. There has been some rally taking place, the Trump rally, and that will go on for the foreseeable future until we get the inauguration, until we get the actual decisions put in place, and we'll see how everything works out. As a result of Italy's referendum, there have been a lot of talk. Is this about them leaving the EU? Do they want to leave it? Is there an issue here? Let's look at it very briefly. As you can see, Eurosceptics. Italian Prime Minister prepared to hand in his resignation after suffering ruinous referendum defeat, cheered by populist leaders but sparking fresh jitters in Europe. My experience of government finishes here. And it was a 60-40 split on that, by the way. It's a constitutional reform. That's exactly what was happening here, or at least attempting to happen. If you want to know exactly, just reference my previous video. Essentially, now he has to hand things over to the president. And this will be, some turmoil in Italy for this time being. What's really bad about this right now is that Italy's banks are suffering. They are not doing well. And there is one in particular which may get its bail in. And this might have been a trigger point for that, in fact. As you see what they talk about the long-running banking crisis, this isn't something that they can handle at this time. They are absolutely, at this time, suffering, the banks. They need bail-ins, bailouts, and everything else. I don't agree with them, but that's exactly what's going to happen. And this is just yet more and more piling on top of that. Looking at this. This is the currency dropping immediately after this decision taking place. Either way, it could have taken a nosedive. This is what we have to see, the euro currency suffering more and more as it goes in its direction towards parity with the US dollar. This is something that is troublesome for the countries, obviously, in Europe dealing with this, everything being priced in US dollars. Italian voters' defeat of a referendum on constitutional reforms cannot be compared to Britain's vote of leaving the EU. That's according to this individual in the ECB. He's also part of the Bank of France. Villeroy is saying these are not the same. Okay, it's very important to notice the difference here. Policymakers are still going to look closely at it, but they're saying that's not what this is. Of course, at the same time, he also says it's talking about Britain. They're not going to be able to get away with it and all this sort of thing. They also mention a word that I have been using, quite often recently, and that is uncertainty. I believe that wherever there is uncertainty, there is risk. Wherever there is risk, there is fragility, and fragility always leads to a crisis. All right. Now, further along in the same article, right here, before the referendum, central bank sources told Reuters the ECB is ready to temporarily step up purchases of Italian government bonds if the referendum sharply drives up borrowing costs for the Eurozone's largest debtor. Think about that. They are going to buy purchases right here, purchases of Italian government bonds. They're already doing that, and they're going to have to step up the pace. And that will happen because anytime there's a crisis, what do? They get right to the printing presses. It happens every time, and it surely will happen yet again. Perhaps not today, perhaps not tomorrow, but it's going to happen. They have to. They absolutely have to every single time, because that's the only way they can get the economy to move, or so they say. This right here is just talking about global trade. It's talking about what we see with Italy's referendum, the acceleration to the rising dollar headwind facing U.S. multinationals could render the Fed's rate hike decision irrelevant in comparison and harm growth back in the States at a point when the economy just looks to be gaining some traction. I wanted to note the fact that you have the euro, it's falling at this time. Simultaneously, the US dollar is gaining. But what would happen with a rate hike increase? What would happen if some of the activities in the US begin to change, that this Trump rally begins to change? You will have these two currencies fighting off against each other for the time being. I believe that although the US dollar is doomed, in the short term, Europe has a lot more to deal with. And this seems to me to be the more pressing issue at this time. If you found this video informative, please give me a thumbs up. Last but not least, if you found the video informative, I know you'll find my book, The Money GPS, even more informative. Just head over to Amazon, where we have this look inside feature. It's going to allow you to flip through the pages of the book so you can see if you like it.